friends. This is Jesse Juarez, president of the Rotary Club of sunny Seaside, California. You're watching a presentation which was recorded live at one of our club meetings. Seaside Rotary meets twice a month via Zoom. Our meetings feature dynamic presentations by many of the movers and shakers that make Monterey County such a vibrant and hardworking community. If you'd like to join a meeting or learn more about Rotary and the work that we do, you can reach out to Seaside Rotary Club at gmail.com. Again, that's Seaside Rotary Club at gmail.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more dynamic content. Now I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Steve McShane.
Great. Well, thank you, President Jesse. Our speaker today is a friend and really a terrific breath of fresh air for not just Seaside, but the region. At just 24 years old, quite a bit of experience, including time as a news personality locally, working as a ledge aide for a member of the House of Representatives, and together, just breaking ground on and forging forward with Spanish outreach, Latino outreach for Central Coast Community Energy. Elected in 2020, he has prioritized himself to be a voice for those that don't have a voice, marginalized. And he confidently shares he's been able to accomplish more than 60% of what he set out to do on the campaign trail. We were oftentimes crisscrossing paths on the same doorsteps, and I'd have the same conversation, prioritizing the environment, climate change, small business, education, and civic participation. He's quite young and Latino, and among the first to be that voice, and has already worked hard to encourage other young people to step up, be involved, and be heard. And more than anything, bridge communication and engagement between the city of Seaside and those members of the community. During his free time, he likes golf, reading, traveling, and binge watching on Netflix. So please help me in welcoming our city councilman for the city of Seaside, Alexis Garcia-Arrazola. The floor is yours, Alexis.
Thank you. Great honor to be here, and a pleasure to be here as well. Like Dr. Betty Lusk mentioned, the whole movement, and I think the whole vision for me when I ran this campaign was around unity, and it is still around unity, right? We have a lot to do, and we do realize that. Although I am one of the first young Latinos to be in office here in Seaside, I'm very much focused on every single constituent here in Seaside. And I think that's important, really hearing those concerns from different lenses and different perspectives. I think my previous background as a news personality and working for the House of Representatives has allowed me to really dial in and ask questions when needed, and really investigate things thoroughly, and make the most viable decision that I feel is best for the community. Sometimes it might not be what I personally believe, but if the community is passionate and fervent about it, I really take my role as a public servant to really own on being that public servant, being that eyes and ears for the community, which I think, sometimes we tend to stray away from, or we try to be strong on our convictions, and that's good at times. But for us here in Seaside, it's very important, and I'm blessed to have such a council that's understanding and willing to work together. I think you don't find that quite too often. And I see the mayor's here, and his support has been instrumental for us in achieving these successes that we want in the city of Seaside. And like Steve McShane mentioned, Councilmember McShane mentioned, we've accomplished a lot in just 1 year in the city of Seaside, really supporting our small businesses, teaming up with Councilmember Pacheco to ensure that we're talking to the small business owners. What do they want, right? We're talking about parking, infrastructure facade programs that they wanted to develop that we passed in city council, an additional parking person that's going to be going through different areas of the city of Seaside to stir up development, to stir up that economy in the city of Seaside, expanding our outdoor dining. That was another thing that members of the community wanted to see, really honing in on our task force and security, and really helping our community members build that bridge between our police department and the community. I think that's essential, and really asking the hard to hit questions. How do we make sure that our community is active? How do we make sure that the community comes to us? And we do that by being honest, by being transparent, and bringing in a new vision. And what I mean by that is really owning up to what we've done wrong in the past, and owning up to those experiences and saying, we're going to do right by your side. And for me, this first year has been quite tremendously insightful. It's been an experience, right? On day one, launching just new ideas, and thankful that the mayor put me on the vaccine outreach task force. I think that was a huge issue for the city of Seaside, and it continues to be a huge issue, not only for our city, but nationwide. And what we did within our first few months is we brought an additional testing site to the city of Seaside, 2 additional testing sites, which I think was critical at the time, and it is now. Crazy how we're still 1 year later talking about the need for testing. And for us, it was important to really develop a comprehensive plan to get our community members vaccinated, and bring out the vaccines as effective as possible. And to date, we can confidently say we are honing into the 80% fully vaccinated residents in the city of Seaside. But what was interesting about that is we all came together and we all brainstormed, and we developed a campaign in the top 3 most spoken languages in the city of Seaside, which included Spanish, English, Tagalog, and all our materials were pushed out in those 3 languages. And that really, again, brought that inclusivity, brought that ability for people to say, okay, you know who I am, and you know I'm here. And successfully, we had a lot of vaccination rates, and I thank the fire chief for that. I think our assistant city manager, our communications assistant that's working for the city, and the mayor as well. His leadership has been at the forefront of how we navigate things through Seaside. And for me, I always say 80% of the job is listening and showing up, and 20% of the job is acting. So you might see me around in the area in different events, and really being supportive of that. I think we successfully did a Oaxaca by the Sea event, which celebrated the culture of our indigenous communities in Mexico. Oaxaca is one of the poorest states in the nation in the country of Mexico. So for us to celebrate that culture and that diversity really brought in a lot of community members. We had Juneteenth from the city of Seaside, which was also important for our community members, and really to uplift those voices, right? When I say we're bringing in all voices, we're trying to do that and really create an identity for Seaside that is diverse, accepting, and really innovative. In terms of climate change, we've put forward a ban on single-use plastics, which was center of my campaign as well, making sure that we prioritize our climate and our environment. So again, little minor details like that might not seem like a lot, but it does add up to the change that we're seeing in the community. And for me, when I worked in news, I started working in news at just 17 years old. It first started up as an internship right after high school. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I liked being in front of camera for some reason. So my parents always wanted me to be a doctor, and I pushed through it through college, my first year of college, while secretly doing an internship in news. I didn't tell them because I knew if I had changed majors, my parents would stop paying for my college. So for me, it was important to stay in line, become that neurosurgeon that they wanted me to be, and make my parents proud. But it then came to a realization that I can't do my job effectively if I don't like what I'm doing. And I think this translates later on into where I'm at right now. So when I started doing that internship in news, I fell in love with it. And within a few months, I think 6 or 8, I was promoted to assistant news producer for 6 o'clock newscast, which was a huge time slot for us. And it was important for me to try my best. I wasn't really that fluent in Spanish at the time, and my grammar wasn't that perfect, but I had the passion and the initiative to make good on the opportunity I was having at just such a young age. And soon enough, became 11 o'clock news producer, full-time news producer, which was quite a challenge because you go home at 1 or 2 in the morning sometimes after you log in everything in and after the newscast is done. But again, it was a learning experience. I balanced working 2 jobs and still working at the news to make sure that I had enough money to pay for my college and support my family as well. So what led after news was being in college and covering 2016 elections. That was a huge moment for me, having the opportunity to interview presidential candidates at just 18 years old, right? Who does that? So that was a great experience for me, getting to interview presidential candidates and getting an insight as to politics, local politics and national politics as well. And being in news, I realized that due to journalism ethics, you can't really have a bias. And I started developing some sort of bias. And I said, I think it's time to leave news and try to figure out where this new era is leading me towards, so this new path. And soon enough, Leon Panetta became a mentor of mine through his internship program. So that was a great opportunity for me to learn policy at a federal level, which I found fascinating. Soon later, I was in the House of Representatives working for Grace Napolitano, Congresswoman Grace Napolitano from District 32, which covered El Monte, Baldwin Park, and different areas in LA and the Valley. So I loved it, came back, ended up at Central Coast Community Energy. And again, that's where I still was working within government informally and started up the Latino Outreach Program, our farm worker outreach program, which we realized that renewable energy is important and it's the new way in which we're going to go as a country. So really going out to the farm field, agricultural field, and getting dirty with the agricultural workers, bringing them lunch during their lunch hour and talking to them about the different programs available and the different funds that were available through Central Coast Community Energy, I think prepared me to later on run for office in that engagement with my community members. And thankfully, I loved it. And in 2019, I decided to, well, actually 2018, I decided to run for office. And I said, let's do it. It only lasted a month, to be honest, because I had some health issues. And that's where I said, my priority first, let's cancel the campaign and let's try again later on. But I never really thought I would be a public official, an elected official. I always saw myself working behind the scenes, just like I did in the House of Representatives. But in 2020, community members gathered around and said, here's an opportunity for you to run for office. Why don't you try it and give it a try? It took me a while to get some convincing done. I had to run it through my family first because, lives do change and you're not so much with family as much anymore. And you have to really balance things out. Decided to run for office in 2019 in November. So we literally launched a year in advance of election day. And it was a very interesting campaign trail because it was virtual. COVID had hit, we couldn't really do in-person interactions anymore. And we really wanted to make sure that we were getting as much word out there. So we had to get creative, right? YouTube ads, Facebook ads, really social media marketing, and really coming in through that unity perspective. We were in a time where it was a tough time for many. And really acting on that and really bringing the community together was my priority. And on election day, we were only leading by, I think it was like 18 votes, 15 votes for the first 2 weeks after the election day. So it was a nail biting race. And when votes were certified, we were at 151 votes ahead. So by a razor thin margin, but nonetheless, I think I'm very grateful for that. And I always hold that near and dear to my heart. And that's why I try my best to do the best, because I realize that I only won by 151 votes. And we have to make sure that our community members see that they didn't make a bad decision. And if they did, how can I correct it, or how can I make better on that? That's always my priority. And I have a question here that says, how does local government better connect with the media to connect more with City Seaside? That was an interesting thing for me on day one, having my media contacts and really starting off from scratch, developing how can we get good stuff out there in an instant, right? And I think at the time, we didn't have a bilingual media specialist, so we weren't really tuning into the Spanish community as much in media. So that was going to be my focus from the get-go as well. And thankfully, having that support, anytime something passes, we get that ability to announce that to our community, because our means of communication are so limited. Sometimes it's just social media posts, and community members sometimes just swipe and don't really look at things. But if you're see it on TV and you're seeing someone that looks like you, or someone that you recognize on TV, having been from media, again, I think it comes as authentic, and it's, you're seeing the change instantly. And we saw that with Oaxaca by the Sea. That was a huge event. We had media coverage locally and internationally. We had media coverage in Mexico, which was very surprising for Seaside. We've never had that coverage out there. We had the ambassador from Mexico come to that event as well. So really creating and establishing those relationships has changed because of media. And for us, that allowed us to then vote on creating a sister city with the state of Oaxaca. So again, it's a rippling effect, if one may say, of how media really gets the word out there. Another question, what led me to get involved with local government? I think, again, developing that bias, being on the boots, really on the ground with working in Congress and seeing how things are made at a federal level. It's everything's so fast paced, but yet so slow, but it's a lot of interacting with both parties. And I think that really was like, okay, we can get stuff done. It's not as bad as, sometimes it's portrayed on media. It's quite easy. I think sometimes we just get so, both parties just get so invested on their own personal convictions that sometimes that gridlocks the ability for us to get things done. So when I came back locally, I had that passion, I had that inspiration to say, let's bring something to Seaside. Let's bring a young vision. And to no disrespect to the rest of my council members, but there is a large gap between us. So I see things through a more, how can we get more creative? And then they see things through, okay, here's how we can make it work for everybody. And I think that's what's good, that we all get together and we say, okay, we craft things in a way that really works for all, and we deliberate. Sometimes, sure, we might disagree, but I think at the end of the day, we can agree to disagree. And I think that's what we need in politics, the ability to set our own politics aside. Because at the end of the day, we're all pretty much good friends. We all go grab a cup of coffee and things of that sort. And that really makes that changes how you get things done. What is your position on funding for public safety, specifically police? How would you say we do a better job to keep Seaside safe and build better trust with law enforcement? Okay, so let me just develop that first part of the question. I think my position on public funding has always been very clear, and we have always supported our police task force, our police department. I think safety is necessary. And I think we need to really prioritize how we engage with our community members. And that's key right there. And the mayor has a police advisory oversight committee. That was a huge step forward in ensuring that how we develop community policing, how we get our young people and our police department and build that bridge. And I think we've been a good conduit in ensuring that the police department has been doing great stuff. As you might see on social media, they've been getting a lot of recognition, a lot of great stuff. During the Christmas holidays, they adopted families to buy Christmas gifts. So really changing the narrative of what a police officer is and being more personal really helps as well. So I've always supported our police department, and I think they're essential in ensuring a safe and secure city. But as well, meeting the community members where they're at and establishing that relationship, making sure that Seaside is known for a great community, a safe community, and a community that engages with its police department. Because I feel that if we support our police department and we get to know our police department and they treat us as equals, we're most likely to, one, report crime, two, come out of the shadows and speak up, and three, feel safe in our own communities, in our own home. And I've seen that recently, that members of the community gather together, whether it's through Nextdoor, whether it's through social media, and try to solve crimes, break-ins or things of that sort. Community members are speaking up, and they're seeing the change in how people are policing. And I think, we're fortunate enough to have a great interim chief right now that really has a good relationship with the community. And I think that's what makes our community difference. What did you learn about Seaside when you were walking door to door and knocking on doors? How would you describe Seaside to someone not here? And do you have any ideas for better addressing homelessness in Seaside and on the peninsula? Very good questions. I think for me, what I saw door to door, we kind of limited our door to door interaction because of COVID. It was right at the height of COVID and the cases were rising. So we couldn't really do much door to door interactions, but the interactions that I would have with the community while I was walking or sometimes delivering the mailers was, how can I trust you? I've never seen you anywhere. You're young, and what are you going to bring to the table? And for me, it was, I think more than anything that motivated me. I think when people say I'm young, that motivates me even more. And when, because it's interesting that having the background that I had and really being on the ground sort of just like went over people's heads sometimes, and to no fault of their own. I think it's just that I've always been behind the scenes, but the experience was there. The passion is there. The knowledge is there. And I think for me, it was really getting to know the people, talking to them. And at the end of the day, they would say, okay, you're pretty good. You're you're pretty well put together. You know how to talk to people, you know how to engage, you're not shy, you have the ability to listen without inserting your 2 cents into something and fighting with me. It's more of a dialogue. You're meeting me where I'm at, and I'm meeting you where you're at. So I think that at the end of the day, it's just meeting people where they're at. How would I describe Seaside to someone not here? You know, I always describe Seaside as a beautiful small town that has a lot of support and character. What I mean by that is everyone gets together, everyone voices their opinion, and when something's wrong, best believe that that they're all going to rile up and come to council and talk. People are vocal here, and I love that. We want a community that gets together, that calls the representatives, that emails the representatives, and has a love for their community. So when I say, what is Seaside? Seaside is a small community, a tight-knit community that shares, in a way, the same values, the ability for Seaside to move forward. And I think that's what makes us different. That even though we come from different backgrounds, we all have one mission: to make Seaside as best as possible. Do you have any ideas for bettering addressing homelessness in the city of Seaside? You know, that's a great issue that we're going to be talking about in the next meeting. We are seeing a rise in homelessness, and it is something that we have to get creative with and innovative. It's going to be coming up in next week, next city council meeting, on how we might address that. So we have some ideas down the pipeline, but I really don't want to share more without having a concrete plan, but stay tuned for that next week. Being in the media, how do we improve and enhance the reputation of Seaside in our region? You know, I think from day one, Seaside had a lot of bad press, one can say, but really working together as a council and ensuring that we're moving innovative policies and talking to our community members has really made sure that the media is paying attention to us. The facade infrastructure program got media attention. Oaxaca by the Sea got media attention. Our business tours have gotten attention. Our actions that we've taken in regards to climate change have gotten attention. So really being progressive in the sense of, let's change the narrative, let's be out there, let's get creative with our events, let's be in the community, let's be a community that has good press. And I think because we're so open to the media, I think the tables have turned on how we get the coverage here as well. And just establishing a good relationship with the reporters. On my end, you know, a lot of them were former colleagues. So if I know something is coming down the pipeline that is very important for the city of Seaside to get attention, you know, just shoot them a text and say, hey, this is what we passed. Not sure if it's a slow day or you guys want to run something. And 9 out of 10 times they usually take my our stories. The food truck ordinance was another great example of great things that we've done for the city of Seaside. So many people out there say that government is broken and that democracy is not working. What do you think? You know, I think it's an important topic to talk about. There are a lot of cracks in our democracy right now, and a lot of gridlock. And I think what's important here, and I think this goes to both parties, we have to put country before party, constituents before party. And as long as we look at that and we hone in on that, we can get things done, because what really stalls our progress is party. And like I mentioned right now, democracy isn't working because of that. And that's why it's really important to look over who is in office, who's running for office. How, how can this person work across the aisle and get things done? I'm very huge on bipartisanship. I think that's the way to get things done in a more effective manner. Um, and that's what you see in Congress sometimes. It was surprising because the congresswoman I was working for was a Democrat. And, working in news, I had this different perspective on how things were done. Some of her best friends were Republicans. And for me, it was just like this, wow, but it shouldn't be like that. And I feel like many Americans see it that way. They feel like there's just this tense fight between parties. And I think a lot of it has to do with how media covers our politics in this country. Um, you have jumped right in and spent time in Washington, D.C. Do you think government can work within itself if there is a disagreement? Um, yes, I kind of just mentioned that right now, saying that we have to put constituency and country before party. That's key right there. And also constituents and the country being vocal. If we put pressure on our politicians, on our elected officials, we get more things done and we get change done. And I think that's what I see on my personal experience when my constituents come to me and talk to me about something. I like that because um, I can't be at all places at all times, but I am all ears and all eyes for everyone at all times. Would you say that Seaside City Council is working well together? I think we are. In and of itself, we are. Sometimes we might have our disagreements, and that might transcend into, just deliberation. But at the end of the day, we're all pretty good friends. We all get together, whether it's a cup of coffee or lunch, like I mentioned. But when we get together outside of council, we talk about our own selves, our personal lives. I think that's what's important, getting to know your colleagues on a personal level and saying, I get you, I see you, you're my friend. But when we're up there, we're working for the city of Seaside. We're not working for ourselves as friends. We're working for the city of Seaside. And that's why we're so passionate. But we do work well together because we're so passionate about our communities. What are the top 3 things you love about Seaside? Can you tell us your favorite places in Seaside: breakfast, lunch, coffee, just to chill? It's a really great question. So my favorite places to go would be Babalu Cafe. It's a Cuban cafe, which unfortunately I just heard they're closed down, which saddens me. I saw their Instagram post. Another place I love to go, just casual when friends come over to Seaside, is Other Brother Brewery. Just to catch a small beer or just catch up. Their trivia night is really fun out there. Breakfast, I would say the Breakfast Club is my go-to. Lunch, I love Puerto Nuevo, Mariscos Puerto Nuevo. It's a seafood restaurant on Broadway. So it's very, very good. I love my seafood, especially on a Sunday after a Saturday night with family or friends. You always enjoy seafood. Can you share a bit about your literacy project? I believe you read to our school kids often, and Palenque Partnership too. Yeah, that was a great project that we launched last year. Each year I've decided to take on an initiative, and last year's initiative was Get Up and Read, which was to increase our literacy rates to our to our elementary school students in Seaside. So what I did with my stipend was donate what I earned, and I would buy school supplies or books, and we would partner with United Way, and we would do Stuff the Bus, or buy books during MLK Day. I remember last year we read to preschool students about MLK virtually, and that was a very cool event that we did because the books that I was reading to them, every single individual student got a copy. So that was a really cool thing for us to share the history, but also to increase our literacy rates for preschool students. I've toured different elementary school sites here in Seaside. I went to Delray Woods Elementary School. So what I did just recently, 3 months ago, was visit my own kindergarten teacher and recognize her for her years of labor. Her name was Sarah Kanar. I think she's now a first grade teacher, but one of the best teachers I've ever had, and a great influence in me. And she saw something that I didn't at the time. So to give back to her students, to give back to the schools has been a great near and dear project to me. And I think for this incoming year, my new initiative is going to be focused on substance abuse and teenagers and an anti-domestic violence campaign to ensure that we have great support for our community members and the youth as well, because we do realize that when we invest in education, we invest in stronger and safer communities for all. So I've always been at the forefront of how can we better our communities and provide adequate resources. And the mayor has been a strong supporter of that too, on how we can get innovative and really bring up our youth to be proud of Seaside, because what I saw growing up was a lot of high school students, after they graduated, many wanted to leave the city, and many did, which was unfortunate and saddening, but I would love to see more students stay in the area. And like I've always said, I think we need to use what we produce at CSUMB and make sure that our community members stay here locally, invest, and who knows, maybe start up a startup or start up a business venture or give back to the community. I think that's what we need. We need to make sure that our young people feel inspired, supported, and that they have an opportunity to succeed here in Seaside as well, because we need them. And
I think that's all the questions we have in the chat box window so far.
yeah, so it's been a great year, a great run. And, you know, I've had the great support from Councilmember Pacheco, Councilmember Campbell, the mayor. And sometimes the mayor is just open, you know, sometimes he'll be in a meeting or he's just heading out the door and I'm like, Mayor, can I ask you a quick question? Or what do you think about this? Or I'm not understanding this right. And he takes the time to sit down and he really gives me a lot of, I think, tools necessary to make my own decisions, which I think is very great. Because you become independent in that sense on that dais. When you're on that dais, we're all independent. But sometimes we all need that support and tools to see, how can I best understand this? Or how can I best understand it through my narrative? Or I'm reading something, or am I understanding this correctly? And the history as well, because when I came in, Craig Mallon left, right? So we had a new interim assistant city manager. So getting to know the history of Seaside, getting to see the changes that are going on right now and having some input is still kind of surreal to me, but it's very important. And I take the job very seriously because I realize that I'm not just advocating for myself, I'm advocating for the whole city of Seaside. And how are they gonna best view my decision is always what I take a look at.
And Alexis, I do see a raised hand from Lisa.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. And I think I put on here too on the chat, we've just been so impressed and appreciative of your representation and how you've handled yourself on the dais and the questions you ask and how you look for the partnership, the cooperation, the unity overall. So, and I think with a body of 5, it's you're a big swing person in some of that. So thank you for that. I had asked the question about fora earlier, and I know it's hard to get everything. I was impressed with how well you did. Sometimes Jesse and I in the past have helped, answer questions and things like that. If you're not willing to discuss it, I understand, but just wondering what you think of employment, because we do have the education and we have the environment of that, but Seaside really hasn't seen the employment promise from the fora lands. And if you don't want to answer, I understand. So,
that is a very complex question that I think develops a lot, requires a lot more information. And I do realize we're on a time constraint, so I'll briefly talk about it on how I believe employment is important for the city of Seaside. I think employment is the #1 key here. We do realize that rents and cost of living is skyrocketing at a massive rate, and our community members need to be employed. How can we develop those employments? And I think that's something that the council has talked about on numerous occasions, but without giving a lot of detail, it's next on our priority list, and we're trying to figure that out as well. So how can we get more employment in the city of Seaside is going to be a top priority for the incoming year for sure.
thank you. And thank you for your representation.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, Alexis, unless we have any more questions from the group here today, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, sharing your perspective. Certainly, all the hard work that you and the rest of the city council do. We greatly appreciate that dedication, and we greatly appreciate you spending the time to share with us, share that with us here today. So, thank you for being a part of this meeting today.
Of course, it's always a pleasure. And again, thank you, each and every one of you, because you are the voice of Seaside, and each and every one of you ensure that we hear your concerns. And without you, there is no us. And without us, there is no Seaside. So it's important for us to be active, vocal, and be civically engaged, because that's what makes democracy different here in the city of Seaside. And all I'm going to end with is stay tuned for tomorrow, because there's a special announcement coming. So I won't go too much into detail, but there is much more to come for Alexis.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to that. Alexis, if you don't mind, it looks like we have a raised hand from Mr. Dave Cassis here. One last question here.
Of course.
Hi, Councilman. Yeah, someone told me that they heard that all that new building along the golf course is not part of Seaside. Is that true, or were they in error? I mean, all that goes along that one fairway going up the Monterey Road, or
On Bayonet?
on Bayonet.
Yeah, it is part of Seaside, if I'm not mistaken. I know the mayor is here. I don't want to put him on the spot, but if I'm not mistaken, it is Seaside still.
Okay, well, that's what I was initially informed of, and then later on, someone from Salinas was saying that they heard that it was part of that new building is not part of Seaside. And I don't know. I would ask if I ever had the opportunity, and here it is the opportunity.
Yeah, no. From my understanding, it is.
Okay, all that going up toward what's that next road that goes up toward General Jim Moore? But anyway, yeah, I hadn't been out there in a long time, and I drove up that way, and all these new homes along the golf course. And when I asked somebody about it, they said, yeah, but a lot of that is not part of Seaside. And
Yeah. Fort Ord is part of Seaside still as well.
That was my impression. Maybe Ms. Gale, maybe you have some information on that. I don't know.
And this is just, as I live here, impression of what I'm hearing. It's going up Monterey Road. It's the homes on the left side of Monterey Road that are not Seaside, but what's paralleling Monterey Road within the golf course is Seaside.
Yeah.
And then I do see Mayor Oglesby has his hand raised as well.
Thank you, Jesse. I just was going to correspond and agree with Gail. She has exactly right. The new homes on the golf course is Seaside. The homes on the other side of Monterey Road is still continue to be the Ord community.
Okay.
And so they're just replacing those old military homes with the new design.
Mm-hmm.
But that's still the military Ord. That's the Ord community on the former Fort Ord.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Now we know.
Oh,
The mayor?
and then Lisa.
Yeah, to the mayor, wasn't that when Fora dissolved, and I know you and I have talked about this, so the Monterey Road, all the way to Light Fighter was to become part of Seaside and really impact and change our tax base. And I don't know what's happening with Presidio Police in that all. Seaside Police already has such troubles and things like that, but that's what I mean, when I ran in things, that was the plan. So that's changed.
No, I'm not sure. I thought we spoke about this before, but no, there hasn't been any change to this since I guess 1994 when the Fort Ord closed. The military kept control over that Ord, and I think we all seen that, and that's what the sign says, Ord community.
Yeah.
Fort Ord has always been inside the city of Seaside's sphere of influence and city limits. So nothing has changed. I know people would like for us to own and control that Ord community, but that belongs underneath the control of the United States Army. So that hasn't changed since 1994.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
know, we're working on, having an understanding with them, but that's, it's hard for us to get grasp because there's no fence around it, but that's United States Army property.
Mhm.
And then never got switched to Seaside. Is that right?
It was never to be switched.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, there was never, the military always maintain control of those housing units and residual barracks over there. Just like the commissary, just like the other Patton, just like the all those other military communities over there. I think was it Preston Park across the street, the school that's over there, and I'm sure Dr. Lusk can chime in about how they go back and forth with the school district. But we should. This has been like this for about 26 years since they closed. They wanted to maintain a military presence. It's difficult for us to understand because there's no fence around it, but that's called the Ord community.
Gotcha. All right, well, understood. Well, understood. Thank you so much for that. I definitely, we definitely appreciate that clarification there. And I know we're running a little bit late on time here, but I just want to say once again, thank you for everyone for being involved on the call today. Alexis, thank you so much for sharing your story and your work with us here. Really appreciate it. And I apologize, everyone, again, if my voice and my energy seems a little low today. I'm hoping to beat whatever cold I have right now. For those who may not have joined the call early this morning, I am hoping to get a PCR test later today, just to make sure it's nothing serious, but just be safe. We're here at home. Once again, Alexis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Eddie. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. All right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and end the